Poverty is a lack of essential needs. It means the person lacks money or stuff to meet fundamental needs and wants. Eliminating poverty in all its forms is one of society's biggest challenge. Poverty has two areas, which are rural and urban area. In this study, we focus on urban poverty. Due to pandemic of COVID-19, urban poverty has become worse in Malaysia, and the group that has been affected the most are B40 with debts, job losers, and also losers of income. The income group is living a hand-to-mouth existence as the cost of living during pandemic is higher as the market price increase often. Even the M40 group has been also affected, and a study revealed that 20% of M40 group had joined the B40 group. Eradicating urban poverty in Malaysia required the right tool to resolve it, as it not going to resolve in a short period of time, but it requires a long time to eradicate it fully. Urban poverty cannot be eradicated using the same method as rural poverty, since there is no agriculture to rely on among the urban poor. They must start from the scratch in order to remove poverty in urban region.
Issue that leads to urban poverty. The first point I'll be explaining is regarding the lack of job opportunities. The issue has always been a topic for people to talk about, as in this age, job opportunities are limited. This has become one of the factors that leads to the issue of urban poverty in most countries, including Malaysia. In this world of technology development, higher specifications are needed for job applications. Therefore, most organizations need to set higher standards and qualifications for employees to ensure that their employees are skillful enough to help in improving the quality and efficiency of the organization. Furthermore, most organizations are looking forward to employing people who have soft skills and would be capable of working efficiently. The higher qualifications set for vacancies have forced the graduates to compete among themselves. Thereby, graduates with lower qualifications will go through a hard time to be accepted for the job they applied for. As a result, many graduates ended up being unemployed. The lack of job opportunities is also caused by some private organizations which prefer cheap labor, especially in the manufacturing, construction, and agricultural industries would employ immigrants. This is because employing immigrants would cost them less in paying the employees' salaries. Next is the issue of lack of education. The issue of lacking in education among the society, which still has not been fully curbed, has led to an increasing rate of urban poverty in Malaysia. As the urban lifestyle is modernized as the day goes by, many people, especially teenagers, are bound to be influenced to be involved in social problems. This is because societies living in urban areas tend to have different lifestyles compared to those living in the rural areas. Society of urban areas have higher tendencies of having much more freedom, which leads them to involve in immoral activities. There are also issues of some who could not afford furthering studies due to financial issues. Usually, the children who are raised in a poor family would not be able to further their education, as it would increase the burden for the parents to pay for the cost. Moreover, the children might sometimes be forced by the situation for them to be working at early ages for them to help in reducing the family burden. The issue of the society lacking education is a serious issue, as it could lead to the increase of urban poverty.
Moving on to the next point, which is the poor enforcement by the government. The purpose of good enforcement in a country is to make sure that its citizens are safe and treated equally in their life. Hence, urban poverty that is still happening in Malaysia is due to the fact of the poor enforcement by the government. An easily obvious example of a weak government is a low minimum wage that is offered or enforced by the Malaysian government. For example, according to The Guardian 2022, in Germany, their minimum salary is 1,584 euros, where their monthly pass for the train can be purchased for 9.1 euros, which this equivalents to one working hour at the minimum wage. And the good part is, people are allowed to use it in one country. Meanwhile, the minimum wage in Malaysia is only Rm 1,200, and the cost of a monthly pass at MyRapid KL is Rm 50 ringgit, which this only equivalents to 5.8 working hours at the minimum wage. And the worst part is, it is only available to use in the Klang Valley area. As a result, the rate of poverty, especially in urbanization in Malaysia, will continue to rise due to the government's poor enforcement. High salaries are the key to economic progress. If no one is willing to pay higher wages, then no one will have the financial means to purchase goods and services in the first place. Last issue is the bad town planning made by the government. Cities that are poorly planned and managed also offer new risks, which have the power to weaken the progress that has been made thus far. Therefore, when local government are unable to provide the best services for all its people in urbanization area, it can lead to an increase in the levels of poverty that exist in those places. The public transport system in the urban area is a total failure because there is no end-to-end service, poor feeder bus service that cannot ferry people from LRT or MRT station to their home, and the LRT breakdowns. This poor town planning by government can be seen when there is a poor public transport system, whereby people are forced to resort driving their own transportation, and this leads to another issue, which is the traffic congestion. Hence, if these situations persist unregulated, the rate of poverty will not be reduced in the urban area.
Next is the implications of poverty in Malaysia, which are increased number of unemployment. Unemployment is one of the most prevalent causes of poverty. One of the way in which poverty can be created by unemployment is through the lack of income by the employer. This can be observed through people frequently losing their job, which indirectly make them also lose their salary and left no revenues to cover their cost of living. If individuals are unable to locate other sources of financing, this might indirectly lead to indebtedness, which also leads to borrowing money to sustain their necessities, either using their saving or even leading to homelessness and hunger in extreme cases. The high unemployment rate among young people today will have a detrimental influence on the future wages of pensioners and indirectly raise the government's burden. It can also make it more likely that they will be poor in the future and create a cycle of poverty. Inequality of living in impoverished community create a poverty trap, since family lack the resources to get employment. Although being unemployed can lead to poverty, being poor can actually make it more difficult to find work. The second implications are limited exposure to basic life. A lack of access to basic needs and socio-economic service has an influence on person's standards of living at the most fundamental level. Global hunger and poverty are also influenced by gender inequality. Inequality affect hunger and poverty among women. Women get paid less than males for the same work, and they are more inclined than males to spend extra money on their children's health and education. So basically, nearly 500 million women and girls lack access to the nutritious nourishment they require for active and healthy life. We won't be able to end hunger and poverty until women and men have the same right. One thing about restricted educational exposure also may lead to one of the consequences. Not every individuals without an education live in severe poverty. However, the vast majority of the severely poor is lack access to education. So clearly, this exposure to fundamental life is necessary for many individuals to embrace what is best for them, not just in the near term, but also in the long run.
For the urban threats, poor town planning is one of the most common culprits that impact people and the nation's future. This is because the poor town planning influences people's quality of life in those areas. It can influence people living because of the lack of access to all essential service, point of interest, and facility that could be prevented if the local government had properly planned the layout. Simultaneously, the negative characteristics of city life are eliminated, resulting in a healthier lifestyle and enhance the quality of life. This situation can happen if the local government in those areas execute their duties well. Increase in inflation rate, so particularly those with low income. This impact the cost of inflation, which can distort the purchasing power over time for recipients and payers of fixed interest rate. This situation has forced them to work to survive, and the pensioners' purchasing power decrease. If a person's income does not increase at the same rate or higher than increase of inflation, then the inflation will affect their life and the country of the economy.
The first strategy is Malaysia at Work or Malaysia Kerja has been tabled in the budget 2020 by Minister of Finance Lim Guan Eng. Malaysia at Work initiative was focused on as a solution for the unemployment problem. According to Ying in 2019, this package has been allocated about RM 6.5 billion and aims to achieve 350,000 jobs in 5 years. The program allows the participants to save for their retirement and also helps in gaining income to support their daily needs. Under this program, it focuses on 4 aspects, which is for the first one is graduates at work. Graduates at work provide employment for fresh graduates and would see the hired graduates receiving a monthly wage incentive up to RM 500. For the second one is apprentices at work. This provide training among youth, encouraging technical and vocational education. There is also additional incentives amounting to RM 100 per month on the existing allowance for trainees. For the third one is women at work. Women in working as this group has consistently been underestimated, such as if they are divorced or single moms. That makes it hard for them to work due to discrimination. This program provides a monthly wage up to RM 500 for returning women workers above the age of 30 who have stopped working almost a year. Next one or the last one is locals at work. Locals at work purposely motivates people not to be selective in working, as most people only focus on jobs that do not require much movement. They need to consider applying a dangerous or difficult job such as firefighters or the military, as it serves the country and also the people. This program is a failure due to pandemic COVID-19 since it will be implemented on June 2020, but Malaysia faces the pandemic on January 2020. The allocation of RM 5.6 billion for this project has been transferred into the Prihatin and Penjana package. Because of the termination of this program, it leads to increasing the rate of unemployment, where the rate will increase from 3.3% to 4.7% in 2020, and this also expected to raise more from time to time. For the second initiatives by the government is Prihatin Rakyat Economic Stimulus Package, or known as Prihatin, is to reduce the financial burden for M40 and B40 households, not only in rural areas but also in urban areas, as they are the most affected during the pandemic. This program introduced a package known as a stimulus package that helps vulnerable groups of income such as M40, B40 and small and medium enterprises, or known as SME. The stimulus package, government has allocated about RM 230 billion. Since Prihatin was mainly implemented for the COVID-19, the government used RM 1.5 billion for medical equipment and also a special allowance for frontliners and equipment and services from private hospitals. For example, the stimulus package for the B40 group has been subsidized amounting to 66 billion, which is provide for Bantuan Prihatin Negara, or known as BPN, electricity bills, loan moratorium, civil servants and others. There is also moratorium payment was granted for 6 months, including PTPTN and bank loans, which means they no need to pay for a 6-month period, and after that period, they will continue to pay back the money. Moreover, there is BPN was allocated for RM 10 billion for certain groups of household income, such as M40 groups, which normally government only aid to B40 groups. This initiative was success, but only for a short period of time, as it can help to reduce the burden for a while, as the financial assistance given is not enough to accommodate the living for a longer period, since the cost of living is very costly. The moratorium that was allocated for RM 100 billion by the government for the people will also leave people with financial burden after the period of 6 months has passed. Thus, we can conclude that the government implementation of this program are good and beneficial for the people, but also have consequences.
And I will continue to the next strategy that have been implemented by the government, which is privatization policy. Privatization has been identified as one of the most important contributors to economic progress and improved international trade.
The Malaysian government adopted a new economic policy in 1969. As a result, a large number of public businesses have been established as one of the strategies for achieving income redistribution within Malaysian society in favor of all communities, including Bumiputra. The primary intention was to alleviate the financial burden on the Malaysian government during the implementation of NEP and to reduce poverty and eliminate inter-ethnic inequities. However, Malaysia's privatization projects may not all be success. Pockets of failure were primarily attributable to a lack of improvement in the required institutional process. The first failure is that living costs and services and utilities have increased due to the economic costing of services in urban areas. This includes housing, telecommunication, water supply, and electricity. As an example that we can see is differences in living costs across different parts of the country. The most costly states are Johor, Kuala Lumpur, and Selangor. For instance, in Kuala Lumpur, we need 100 a day, but we don't need that much in the rural area. The second failure is employees of privatized enterprise have fewer job possibility, work overtime, and get lower real salaries. Malaysia will be a high-income country due to the growth of its private sector. However, many of these businesses are low-tech, labor-intensive enterprise that are permitted by the government to use foreign labor to increase earnings. Many of our P40 group's members are low-skilled and hence appropriate for this job scope, but they refuse to work for their low-pay offer. If they have poor salaries and live in the city, it will be a burden for them. Lastly is Malaysia's Smart City Framework. The necessity to construct smart cities in Malaysia can be attributed to the following factors which address urban challenges arising from rapid urbanization, to promote digital economy and to meet national and global agenda. In Malaysia, a smart city is defined as a city that applies advanced ICT and technology to address urban concerns such as improving quality of life, promoting economic growth, developing a sustainable and secure environment, and encouraging efficient urban management practices. The government of Malaysia believes that smart cities are the future approach to urban planning, development and management that can provide solutions to urban challenges. However, the MSCF projects may not be all success as several initiatives have failed since they were implemented. As an example are inefficient delivery of urban services, environmental pollution, and traffic congestion. The failures that can be seen are Station Cyberjaya and Pusat Bandar Cyberjaya. The function is to improve the quality of life for citizens and reduce the cost of living when they stay in urban areas. However, the MRT Cyberjaya is far from Cyberjaya area, such as Tamarin Square, and more places include the workplace. This issue happened when the government failed to implement automated rapid transit that is known as ART. Many people have noticed that the traffic congestion is really awful right now. Despite the fact that Malaysia has invested billions on the MRT, the problem is worsening. The MRT station is said to be a long way from home. There will be an impact on human health and animal population due to inadequate town planning. As a consequence, the government must look back and devise a solution for public transportation which is still inefficient.
As a conclusion, poverty has become a significant problem in our society that should be taken seriously by putting in place adequate measures. When we analyze facts on poverty, the most common truth that we may notice is that poverty is particularly prevalent in developing countries. Due to urbanization, urban poverty has become a more visible reality in Malaysia. To address the issues, it is critical to determine where the poor are in the city, the distinctions between poor areas, the success of specific initiatives, and the design and best practices of urban poverty reduction programs and policies. In reality, the issues of poverty are one of the issues that are hard to control. As an example, developing countries such as the United States, Japan, and many other developing countries are also experiencing the same issue. However, some countries succeed in lowering the urban poverty rate in their country by raising income levels and improving living circumstances for the poor, ensuring their future social status into the middle class. Therefore, though this issue could not be easily solved completely, the government of Malaysia must still plan and implement initiatives that would minimize the issue and improve the standard of living in our country in order to narrow down the gap of social status among the citizens.